Roughly 10 years ago, I was a 31-year-old mother living a quiet life on the second floor of an old, creaky, two-family house, sharing the space with my energetic toddler. The layout was unique. While we had private front entrances, there was a shared back entrance with a narrow, dimly lit staircase that snaked from the dark basement all the way up to my second-floor kitchen. My brother's close friend lived on the first floor, and because of this connection, I had developed a dangerous habit of leaving my back door unlocked to avoid being locked out. My downstairs neighbor was kind-hearted, perhaps too much so, as he allowed a down-and-out friend with a long history of substance abuse to crash on his living room couch. Eventually, the man's presence became a disruption to my neighbor's young daughter, and when he was asked to leave, he stubbornly tried to sleep on our shared, covered porch. We had to be firm, telling him he needed to leave the property entirely, especially as it became clear he was using hard drugs again and acting with increasing volatility. He began making unsolicited, highly uncomfortable romantic advances toward me. But after we pushed him away for good, he seemed to vanish from our neighborhood for over a month. Soon after, I began to notice a series of strange disappearances. Small pieces of jewelry, loose cash, and even lighters were vanishing from my tables and counters. The house was ancient with paper-thin walls, and that shared back door made a very heavy metallic thud and a distinct creak whenever it was opened or closed. One afternoon, while my car was at the mechanic, making the house appear empty, I was in the shower when I heard that unmistakable back door groan open. I froze, the water pelting my back as I held my breath in terror. But when no one burst into the bathroom, I forced myself to write it off as my overactive imagination. The basement below us was a massive, subterranean labyrinth filled with the landlord's old boxes and furniture, creating a landscape of pitch-black, suffocatingly quiet corners. One day, the landlord decided to head down there to retrieve some items. But as he moved through the clutter, he heard a rustling sound that didn't sound like a rat. Instinctively grabbing a baseball bat, he moved toward the noise and discovered the man we thought was gone, hiding in the darkness like a cornered animal. The intruder violently shoved the landlord to the ground and sprinted out of the house, leading to a frantic police search that ended with them finding him curled up in a trash can nearby. The subsequent investigation revealed a terrifying secret. He had propped open a small basement window in a back corner to gain entry whenever he pleased. Tucked behind a wall of boxes was a nest of blankets where he had been living, surrounded by my stolen jewelry, his drug paraphernalia, and a discarded flip phone. My blood ran cold when the police searched that phone. It was filled with dozens of candid photographs he had taken of me while I was fast asleep in my own bed. This man had been high on crack, living beneath my feet for months, and sneaking into my apartment while I slept to watch me and my child. The most infuriating part was that, despite the evidence of stalking and breaking and entering, the state dropped the charges without ever consulting me, the victim. Back in 2015, I was 21 years old and feeling profoundly lonely and vulnerable after moving to a new city following a traumatic breakup. In an attempt to overcome my social anxiety and make new connections, I matched with a guy named Simon on a dating app who claimed to be a musician. We talked sporadically, and he eventually invited me to a summer barbecue at a house he supposedly shared with his bandmates, claiming their manager provided the home. I was hesitant, but the maps showed a nice suburban neighborhood filled with families, so I figured a backyard party in the afternoon would be safe enough. I explicitly told Simon I wouldn't be going inside the house at all, and he agreed, promising we would spend the entire time in the yard under the sun. When I arrived at the train station to meet him, my first red flag appeared. Up close, he looked nearly 10 years older than the photos he had used on his profile. He was also visibly intoxicated, swaying slightly as he walked. But I tried to be non-judgmental, assuming he was just excited to be hosting a party. When we reached the front door, he insisted we had to walk through the interior to get to the backyard, ignoring my previous request to stay outside. The moment I stepped over the threshold, he slammed the door and locked the heavy deadbolt with a chilling click, sealing us both inside the quiet house. The house was eerie. It was decorated with floral patterns and delicate furniture, looking more like a grandmother's home than a place where a rock band lived. As we walked into the kitchen, I glanced out the window and realized with a jolt of pure panic that the backyard was completely empty. There was no party, no food, and no people. Simon began spinning a web of lies, claiming his bandmates were stuck in a broken-down van and would be arriving any minute to start the celebration. He then became fixated on showing me the basement, a place he described with an unsettling pride. Despite my repeated protests and fake excuses about having a spider phobia, he grew agitated by my reluctance. So I eventually followed him down into the dark, damp basement, hoping that seeing it would finally allow us to go outside. In the middle of the room, I saw a bizarre door with heavy foam lining and a thick metal latch, looking exactly like a walk-in freezer door from a commercial kitchen. He swung it open and invited me into what he called his soundproof music studio. But inside, I saw only mattress toppers on the walls and a single mattress on the floor. There were no drums, no microphones, and no recording gear. Just a soundproof box with a door that could only be opened from the outside, and I realized I was in grave danger. I refused to step inside, and after a tense standoff, I managed to play along and suggest we walk to a liquor store to get more beer for the party. Once we were out in the world, I led him to a drugstore and tricked him into waiting outside, claiming I needed to buy a toothbrush and that beer wasn't allowed inside. I spent 30 minutes watching him through the window as he stared back at me, until I finally slipped out with a group of strangers and told him to never follow me again. This nightmare unfolded about 2 years ago, just weeks after our family had moved into a new home and shortly after my baby brother was born. In our basement, there was a small, unassuming room that had been locked since the day we moved in. We never questioned it, assuming it was just for utility storage. One weekend, my parents went away for a short trip, leaving me and my older sister in charge of the newborn while they enjoyed some time alone. My sister went out with her friends that evening, so I put my brother to bed in his upstairs nursery and settled onto the couch to watch a movie. I eventually drifted off to sleep, but I was jolted awake around midnight by a series of strange, heavy, thumping noises vibrating through the floor from above. It was too late for the neighbors to be active, and the house was far too quiet for that kind of noise, so I cautiously approached the stairs to see what was happening. Just as I reached the first step, I heard a sharp clink as a metal object hit the floor. Looking down, I saw the key to that locked basement room. Panic flared as I grabbed my phone, but instead of calling 911 myself, I frantically texted my friends, one of whom immediately called the police for me. Suddenly, the bathroom door slammed shut with a violent bang. I knew it was that door specifically because of its unique, high-pitched creak. My heart hammered against my ribs as I remembered my baby brother was sleeping right near that bathroom, and I raced upstairs to check on him. He was safe and still sleeping, but the intruder was clearly still in the house, hidden behind the thin wood of the bathroom door. Driven by a surge of protective adrenaline, I decided to confront him. I rushed at the door and pushed it inward with every ounce of strength I had. I heard a man let out a pained scream as the door smashed into him, and I quickly slammed it back shut, putting my weight against it to keep him trapped. Inside, the man began frantically smashing the bathroom window. He climbed through the broken glass and leaped onto a small neighboring ledge to escape. I grabbed my brother, clutching him to my chest, and ran into the kitchen, where I realized with horror that a large chef's knife was missing from our block. I grabbed another knife to defend us and huddled in the corner of the living room, weeping as I waited for the sirens to get closer to the house. When the police finally arrived, they confirmed that the intruder had escaped through the shattered window. But the true horror was yet to be discovered. They went down into the basement and forced open that small, mysterious room that we had always found locked. Inside that tiny, cramped space, they found a pile of blankets, several empty cans of food, and the missing knife from our kitchen.